It Calls You Back chronicles Luis J. Rodriguez's life as a family man, writer, and former gang member, and his difficulties adjusting to life as an author and activist. Having already published Always Running, his famous memoir that describes his childhood struggles and growing up as a gang member, It Calls You Back traces his life as he falls in and out of love with various women, his continual grapple with his alcohol addictions, often relapsing, and confronting his issues of being an absent father, husband, friend, and son. Ultimately, he finds that his past, all the robberies, the drugs, the crimes, has a way of calling him back, especially as he sees his past repeating itself within his son, who was highly involved in gangs and was convicted of attempted murder. It Calls You Back is an empowering book that speaks volumes to the struggle and challenges one faces growing up in a disenfranchised community and the difficulties adjusting to a different life outside the barrio. In It Calls You Back, Luis J. Rodriguez addresses his experience with police harassment, his passion for activism, and his dedication for writing. Having grown up in the barrio, Luis J. Rodriguez writes about his constant struggle of being harassed by the police because of his political views, demeanor, and style. When discussing his stay at the county jail for fighting with the Chotas, Rodriguez writes, "It was the deputy's statement that rang through my ears, 'You'll be back.' These words at the time were a personal curse. A big part of me believed I would be back." Here and throughout the book, Rodriguez reflects on being scared of going back to the drugs, gangs, and alcohol, even though he is preaching the complete opposite. Rodriguez continues to write about the harassment he faced when he was involved in local community organizations. Oftentimes, he was a victim of false reports and police brutality because he was advocating for people to challenge oppression. He writes, "We became outcasts because of our ideas, our spirits, our aims. There was no reason the government should have messed with us. We were Mr. and Mrs. Clean. Yet this didn't stop taxpayer repression." This sort of brutality is seen throughout his writing, a concept that is still evident today. Having traveled the world in pursuit for equality and awareness, Rodriguez has always been involved in activism, from speaking with juvenile offenders to starting writers' workshops amongst youth. In order to promote literacy and education amongst urban youth, Rodriguez opened Tia Chucha's bookstore, intended to provide youth with reading material on social justice issues. Rodriguez also fought for union workers. At a talk on labor issues affecting low-income people, Rodriguez writes how the KKK in West Virginia sympathized with his cause, as they expressed to him, "We're having the same problem as other people, and we have more in common with them than rich white folk. We're interested. We want to hear more." It is this type of insight that demonstrated the possibilities of poor white people taking up a revolutionary destiny they were meant to fulfill along with people of color. Such an event suggests that the power of Rodriguez's message of class equality began to open up the minds of even the most notorious racist organizations evident in today's society. Throughout the book, Rodriguez discusses his wide range of jobs, from writing books of poetry to publishing memoirs to being a newspaper journalist, where he has been placed on the front lines of homicides, activist rallies, and indigenous uprisings. On a trip to Oaxaca, Mexico, to cover an indigenous uprising, Rodriguez writes on the government-mandated surveillance he was placed under, as well as the inspiration that came from a group of indigenous people marching across the city fighting for equality. Rodriguez writes how a Zapoteca woman told him, "You must take our stories, our struggles, and also our victories, and convince the American people to finally end their empire, their political maneuverings, to let Mexico belong to Mexicans again." He credits such words as being the encouragement he needed to continue to fight through his alcohol withdrawals and finishing this book with high-quality writing. It Calls You Back is an exceptional book. Not only can you feel the test of addiction, love, and harassment that Rodriguez has gone through, but this book provides insight on the struggles many people of color face as they leave their barrios in search for a greater understanding on life and the true importance of education and success. It Calls You Back is a great book for high school age students, especially students situated in urban areas. This book tackles the very difficulties that today's current students are facing, from harassment to police brutality to insufficient resources for our public schools. More importantly, this book highlights life after leaving the hood and the diligence it takes to adjust to a new life. For high school students, this is essential, as many books may highlight someone escaping the glamorized thug life, but few highlight the path and real situations that continue to occur despite a change in surrounding. Moreover, the book can work well with students in an English class, as it is full of descriptive language and can be read to introduce the concept of autobiographies and memoirs. Furthermore, in a social science classroom, his activism spanning across decades can be useful in reviewing the political climate of the conservative 80s, the active 90s, and today's current events. Essentially, this book advocates for motivation of students and setting the example for today's youth.